Hello? All right. Hi, guys. Thanks for being here. I'm going to be presenting Porta and giving an overview of Bitcoin adoption in Chile. So Porta is the new startup that I'm creating. I'm the CEO and co-founder. Tu puerta de entrada al mundo Bitcoin. For those of you that don't know English, or I mean Spanish, it's your gateway to the world of Bitcoin. And so, who am I? My name is Pedro Solimano. I'm Chilean, although I lived in the US, hence my American accent. I'm a political scientist by study in university. I've been a professional translator for the past 10 years, working with Oxford and Cambridge University Press, amongst other editorials. I'm a Bitcoiner class of 2018. I founded in 2020 La Cadena, which is an educational initiative in Chile. I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. And I'm the CEO and co-founder of Porta, which is the first Bitcoin-only onboarding platform for Latin America. So I come from Chile, which some of you might know it, might not know it. It's that very long and skinny country and deep in the deep south, or in the global south. It's an interesting country from a wide variety of perspectives. From a natural standpoint, our geography makes us an island. So to the north, we have the Atacama Desert, which is the driest desert in the world. To the west, we have the Pacific Ocean, which is the largest ocean in the world. Those right there that you see are called Moais. They live on a small island called Rapa Nui, which is so far into the Pacific Ocean, it's called the belly button of the world. And that's the closest landmass that we have. After that, it's all the way to Australia. To the east, we have La Cordillera de los Andes, which is the longest mountain range in the world. And then to the south, we have Patagonia, and Puerto Williams is a small city, which is the southernmost tip in the world. So this geography makes Chileans a bit conservative. It makes us a bit reticent to change. It gives us some idiosyncrasies that make Bitcoin adoption and any big sort of movement like what we're trying to create here a bit more difficult. But there's still some hope, and there's still some interesting stuff that's going on there that I'd like to share with you guys. So I think it'll be interesting to situate Chilean history so as we can get a bit of an overview of what's going on in the country or what's happened in the country and what's made Chile what it is today in 2022 and how that's created the bedrock for what Bitcoin will become eventually, for what the socio-political landscape is happening right now, and just so that we can understand a little bit more about what's going on. So in 1970, the man to the top left, Salvador Allende, was elected. He was the first socialist president to be elected by popular vote. And he implemented a socialist experiment from 1970 to 1973, where he did nationalize a lot of industries. He actually had a big play or tried to decentralize a lot of what the country's main factories and industries were going through. He tried to establish economic democracy in the country, but that quickly saw boycotts from the economic elites in the country, and the US and the CIA led a military coup in 1973, which was led by Augusto Pinochet at the top right, and he led the country, or his regime lasted from 1973 to 1990. This is obviously going to have a big impact in the country and what Chile has become over the later years. We've been going through what's called the neoliberal experiment. Pinochet was very close ideologically to Margaret Thatcher, to Ronald Reagan, and he implemented the school of thought from Chicago. So he brought in a bunch of economists from Chicago, which are famously called the Chicago Boys, and they implemented free market reforms for everything. So we privatized the entire country. I'm talking health services, basic infrastructure, education. Fun fact, Chile is the only country that water is privatized. So the rights to water right now are in hands of, private actors, although that's seemingly going to end pretty soon. That happened because in 1980, Pinochet and the military regime that was in charge wrote a new constitution. And within that new constitution, they established this bedrock of free market reforms, free market ideology, and what would lead Chile into what became known as the Jaguars of Latin America. So the Jaguars of Latin America, I should state before that, Pinochet in 1988, he led a referendum to see if people wanted to continue under his regime. He lost, obviously, and in 1990 he handed over power, and that's when we had a return to democracy. And during the 1990s, there were talks about perhaps changing the constitution and going back to, making a new referendum, but that never happened, and we continued with everything that was established during Pinochet. And then we were famously called during the 1990s and the early 2000s the Jaguars of Latin America. This was in reference to the tigers of Southeast Asia, so Singapore, Hong Kong, South Korea, and Taiwan, and we were characterized, same as them, as strong economic growth, low levels of debt to GDP ratio. However, Chile, because we had everything very privatized and it was all created and tied together by that constitution in 1980, we saw large levels of inequality. So Chile actually has one of the largest levels of inequality in the world, according to the Gini coefficient, which is how you calculate these kind of things. So when you hear that Chile is this high growth economic powerhouse in the region, that is true to a degree, but it comes with this underbelly of large amounts of the population who are living on credit, large amounts of the population who are living under poverty. I don't know if any of you guys have visited Chile, but we have like stark differences in several places of the country. So you have areas that are like Switzerland, and then you have places where what you would expect from emerging markets, especially Latin American ones. So that was slowly created a lot of classism, a lot of discrimination. It created injustices. Santiago got very centralized, Chile got very centralized. Right now, Santiago, which is the capital, has around 40% of the entire country's population, and it amasses something like 60 or over half of all the country's money has to flow through Santiago before it gets redistributed some other place. And that led to El Estallido Social of 2019. I'm sure you guys saw on TV or on social media when we burned metro stations and when we hit the streets. That was caused by a price hike in public transport of 30 pesos, which is roughly 3 cents of a dollar. And that led to, massive protests. Millions of people hit the streets. A lot of repression from the police and the armed forces. All the institutions were called into question. So central government, Congress, the judicial power, everything was really, we didn't really know what was going on. It was the first time since the dictatorship that we saw the army back on the streets, and that obviously resurfaced a lot of traumas and issues that happened. And the main slogan was, it wasn't 30 pesos, it was 30 years. So it was this whole idea of, over the past 30 years of injustice, of not changing the Constitution, of seeing, the wealth and income gap just grow and grow and grow, and some people just taking the whole piece of the pie, or the majority of piece of the pie, and the vast majority just continue to live how they were living. And I had been living abroad. I arrived just as the Estallido Social was going on, and I thought to myself, this was an excellent moment for Bitcoin to really take off, but it didn't. And that's because what people were complaining about, not only is money a taboo, as you all know, but people were complaining about simple dignity, just being recognized as citizens of the same society, as equals, as having the same rights and the same rules as everybody else. So Bitcoin didn't actually make a big impact at that point. Although, as we'll see a little bit later, it has slowly been permeating in society. But if you would think that this would be a great place for Bitcoin to really take off, especially in a moment like el estallido social that didn't actually happen. Some of the challenges and opportunities for Bitcoin and for what I'm creating, which is Porta later on, is that Chile has, and Chileans have a lot of faith in the central bank. If you guys are Latin Americans, I'm sure you know, or if you know a little bit about Latin America, the Chilean pesos is one of the strongest in the region. We have we had until now, some of the lowest levels of inflation, not only in the region, but in the world, which is actually an anomaly, thinking that to the right of us we had Argentina, a little bit to the north we have Venezuela, all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of faith in the central bank. Even though there was a loss of credibility, a big loss in credibility for the institutions after el estallido social of 2019, the central bank has not been touched or hasn't been called into question to a great deal, which is actually pretty interesting. And then a second challenge is a financial system that, quote unquote, works. So we have a Banco Estado, which is the state bank that offers everybody a bank account. So if you have a social security number, which actually immigrants or foreigners that are living in Chile, it's not that difficult to actually get an ID. As soon as you get one, you get registered and you can open a bank account. It's obviously not the best bank in the world. It comes with a whole deal of issues, but that immediately bankerizes a lot of people. So we have a high degree of financialization. Then within the actual banking system, we don't charge, or banks don't charge for interbank transfers. We have low fees. So you can understand slowly why there are some challenges for Bitcoin to actually take off. Due to Pinochet and free market reforms and this whole privatization of the entire country, there's been a return of the sensation back to socialism, or back to a larger role of the state in the economy, in politics, in different areas of society. And I think that's also created a challenge for Bitcoin to actually insert itself, because in Chile, at least, it's looked as a tool of conservatives, it's looked as a tool of the elites. Although we have a pretty large impact, or a pretty large, reasonably large, I guess, adoption of Bitcoin in the region, it's still very concentrated in the upper classes, and it still hasn't really made its way down. Also, due to past years or the past decades of how our politics and how our society has been created, we're a very legalist population. What does this mean? That we like to follow rules a lot. The famous Colombian author Gabriel Garcia Marquez once said that he was shocked by going to Chile and seeing that the Civic Code, so the book that tells us all the laws, was sold at every kiosk that he would visit in the street. So we struggle with changes. We struggle with actually just, not following rules or anything like that. And the Pinochet regime and the reforms, this I think is an opportunity, has created a sort of individualistic population, which can be seen as an opportunity for pushing Bitcoin further into the masses, or into, the whole collective of what's going on. Here are some of the information of why I think that Chile is ready for Porta and Bitcoin. It's the 7th country in Latin America for crypto adoption. So this is according to a study done by Chainalysis, which was published a few months ago. There's only 4 cryptocurrencies exchanges available. And this is an important point. We just passed last month a new fintech law that looks to pioneer the fintech industry for the entire region. It's created a really friendly and a really open framework, and it's looking to create, a lot of opportunities for fintechs looking to install themselves in the region. Chile has always been a foreign investor-friendly country, so we have tax credits, we have a very open financial system, a very open economy, and we're always looking for new companies, new industries, and all that, and for them to come into Chile, establish themselves, invest in our industries, and start to grow the economy. We have one of the highest internet penetration numbers in the region, upwards of 90%. We are quite advanced, we are quite high-tech, we are quite capitalistic. we have what could be or what seems to be a pretty exciting place or something for Bitcoin adoption to really push it to the next level. A few years ago, there was a lawsuit between exchanges and banks where exchanges or banks just closed unilaterally all the bank accounts for the exchanges. And for the past years, they've been in this sort of tug of war, this long, just really worn out lawsuit that's coming to an end. It was 14 banks against the 4 exchanges. A couple of the banks have already settled, and it seems like they're going to settle, the rest are going to settle as well, which is also going to open it up and going to create this much more friendly environment from the already banking industry and from this new fintech law to be able to create a sort of atmosphere of working transparent, I don't know if transparency from the banks, but for this a much more working relationship between the two. I'd like to explain a little bit what now, after all that overview of what Chile has been going through, what Chile is doing, how these numbers might be able to play into what we're looking to advance as Bitcoiners in the country, what I've been doing there. So during El Estallido Social, I realized that there was no Bitcoin-only platforms, no initiatives. There were very few meetups, very far and few between media companies or things that were Bitcoin exclusive. And that's when I created La Cadena, which is Spanish for the chain. I founded it in 2020. It's a weekly newsletter, or it began as a weekly newsletter. So every Wednesday today, I'm supposed to publish it. It's a monthly podcast. The podcasts go out a little bit later on because I do interviews with people from all around the world. I've had Andreas Antonopoulos on it. I've had Lynn Alden. I've had Marina Spindler, who's around here also speaking. The deceased Nick Carter. I've had a few other people there. So that's a little bit far and few between. I do monthly workshops and meetups. So I've been going to schools, to companies, to civic organizations, friends and family, just really doing a sort of financial education project and initiative, going from the history of money all the way to Bitcoin and just really trying to get the word out. I've been doing meetups, also on the monthly, trying to really create community and try to get everybody more excited to try to push adoption a little bit further on. And that's what led me to create Porta, which is I lacked a place for people to actually buy Bitcoin. So after my workshops, people would approach and be, so where can I actually buy Bitcoin and start stacking sats? And I have a Telegram group, peer-to-peer with my friends, which is trust-based, and it was just a bit uncomfortable, I think, for everybody, for me to just hand that out. I don't think my friends would have been okay with that, neither would I if it had been the other way around. And then the other option was sending them to one of the 4 crypto exchanges that actually existed in the country, also something that I didn't feel comfortable with. And that's when I decided to create Porta, which is Tu Puerta de Entrada al Mundo Bitcoin, which means your gateway into the world of Bitcoin. This is the first Bitcoin onboarding platform for Latin America. So this is the one place where you can educate yourself, learn both for a beginner and for somebody advanced, what is Bitcoin, what is money, Lightning Network, all that sort of stuff. And then in a very simple and easy to use place, you can start stacking and buying Bitcoin. Our 3 core values are obviously Bitcoin only, then education first, so that's one of our biggest interests, not only Bitcoin education, but financial education, personal finance, and just create a whole holistic space where people can learn about this kind of stuff, the history of money, and user-centered design. So right now we're a team of 3. I'm the CEO, I have my CTO, and there's my CDO. So we're really looking to create something where the user, their needs, their pains, their simplicity, their desires is really at the forefront of what we're trying to create. So just 4 or 5 clicks and you can buy Bitcoin, and then 1 click and you can send it to your personal wallet. Not your keys, not your coins. That's what we're really pushing for. This doesn't exist in Latin America. There's a scattering of educational initiatives, podcasts, newsletters, all that sort of stuff, sort of like La Cadena, but there's not a place where you can actually buy and start stacking sats. And that's what we're looking to create, that sort of umbrella company that you can actually stand behind, and that, yeah, you can actually learn, but you can actually also start buying. And we're taking a bottoms-up approach, which is starting in Chile. The entire team is Chilean. That's where I'm based. That's where we're all based. For the reasons I told you before, the fintech law, the degree of adoption already there. We have a very friendly and open financial market. We have a high-tech industry, capitalistic, and we're open for new initiatives. So that's why we're looking to start off in Chile. Chile is also well known as a perfect marketplace to test ideas and then to move on to the rest of the region. That happens in all sorts of industry, from health tech to ed tech to everything else. And so that's what we're looking to create. We want to branch out into the rest of Latin America eventually, but we're starting off here. As of right now, Porta is in beta testing. We've got all our education. Right now we have our landing page currently active, where you can register and you can start receiving very basic but very clear information about what is Bitcoin. And we're hoping to launch in the first quarter of 2023. And yeah, there it should be active for people at least in Chile. I want to thank everybody for being here. portabtc.com is the website. That's the landing page where you guys can jump on, see what we're already creating, see how it works, see what's going on. As you can see in the bottom right corner, there's a little angel there. We are raising capital at the moment to really take this to the next level and turbocharge, or just, yeah, step into the next phase of what Porta is going to become. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, I think there might be a few minutes left, and if not, I'll be around here for the next, few days of the conference. And thank you all for listening, and I hope you learned and were entertained. Oh yeah.
I have a question. The 1,000 pesos range. Thank you. The 1,000 pesos range you have for the selling of the bitcoins in Chile. That one works in a peer-to-peer manner, or it is like a centralized way you have it in order to not centralized, but like a source from this. For people to purchase the bitcoins, or it's a peer-to-peer dynamic?
No, we're beginning as creating a centralized place for you to buy Bitcoin. So I think eventually we might open a peer-to-peer marketplace, but it will be buying directly from Porta. And I should state that we're a clear onboarding company. So we're not going to allow selling on the platform. It's only for buying. We want to really create this long-term, both ideologically and strategic model. So yeah, that's why also peer-to-peer marketplace might be a little bit difficult on that sense, because that's what we're looking to create. I don't know if any more questions. Thank you once again.